All right, hey participants, thanks for joining us, classrooms. If you could practice using the Q&A, because that's what we're going to use to ask questions. So let's get things started by putting your location and your grade and your teacher's name so we can give some shout outs to people joining us this morning. We're going to get started here in just about 30 seconds. And I see that we have some people joining us from YouTube as well. So YouTube, make sure that you are ready to go in the comment section with questions. So I'm going to give a few shout outs here. We have Mr. Schmaltz from Lewiston Ultra Elementary 3rd grade, West Central area 4th graders, Miss Molly's 4th grade class in Winona, welcome. Northside Elementary School in St. James, Minnesota, we are glad to have you. Miss Dresden 2nd grade class from Red Wing, Minnesota. Grand Rapids, Minnesota, welcome. Miss Kemp and Miss Sherry's 3rd graders in Wyoming, New York, awesome. Glad to have some New Yorkers with us. Miss Shauna, 5th and 6th graders from Brainerd. We have 2nd graders from South Washington, McDowell, Montessori. Mrs. Furley's 3rd grade from Jonathan Elementary. That's close to where I live. Lonsdale, Minnesota, and it's also very close to our site for today, Jonathan Elementary. And we also have some 4th graders from Little Falls. I see a bunch more, but we are excited to get started today. So welcome everyone. My name is Sue Knott. I'm an education specialist for the Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom program. And we are so excited to host our 2nd February virtual field trip. So today we are traveling to the University of Minnesota Landscape Arboretum, and they have there the Tashjian, a hard word to say, Bee and Pollinator Discovery Center. So we are going to learn all about bees and other pollinators. So Ping Honzay is the farm at the Arb. Arb is an abbreviation for Arboretum. She's waving at you right now. She is the farm at the Arb education coordinator, and she is going to share a wealth of information all about bees and pollinators with us. And she's joined by Jessica Blossberg, who is a regional curriculum specialist with Minnesota Ag in the Classroom. So Jessica, you can give us a wave too.
Do you want to, she's just introduced you.
I forget that Jessica can't hear us. So she's going to be the camera person. Ping is the one with the headset who can hear us. So we are excited to travel to the Landscape Arboretum, to the Tashjian Pollinator and Discovery Center. So Ping, get us started. Tell us where you're at and what's going on there today.
Yeah, thanks for introducing us, Sue. So I'm in the Bee and Pollinator Discovery Center, like Sue mentioned, at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum. So I'm guessing some of you might have been here before, especially some of those schools, like Sue mentioned, that are pretty close. But we're in Chanhassen, Chaska, Minnesota, about 30 minutes west of the Twin Cities. And it's pretty cold here today, as most of you might guess, who live in Minnesota or even New York. But we have lots of things inside that we can use to look at how we take care of bees and what bees do. So I'm really excited to talk to all of you today.
And we are excited, Ping, I just forgot to mention one thing in the introduction. We are excited to answer questions that anybody has. So please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to put any questions you have. And if there's lots, we might not be able to answer them all, but I will try to ask as many as possible. And if you're joining us in YouTube, please use that comment feature at any point, Q&A comment feature at any point when you have a question, put them in there and we'll try to sprinkle them throughout our time at the the Pollinator Center. So back to Ping.
All right, thanks, Sue. Well, I'm just gonna step back here because we have lots of items on this table here. So like I mentioned, our honeybees are, it's a pretty cold day. They're inside their hives today. They are actually awake and active. But they're just in a big ball of bees and they just kind of shiver to stay warm, and they eat honey throughout the winter. So that's great. They're in there. We won't bother them. But I have all of these things in front of me so that we can take a look at what a year in the life of a honeybee hive looks like. Even though, yeah, right now they're still inside their hives. So actually, in just a couple of months now, I'm really excited. In April, I'm going to go pick up some more bees for the honeybee center here. And if you're wondering where our bees come from, somebody actually drives out to California and picks up all of these bees. And then I drive to Stillwater, which is on the east side of the Twin Cities. And I pick our bees up in a box like this. So we call this a package. You can actually have one of these mailed to you too, just like you might send a package in the mail. They can actually mail a package like this. And it's just a box of bees, and they usually have about 3 pounds of bees in here. So just like you might buy go to the store and buy, meat or something by the pound. We actually buy our bees by the pound too. So in this box, we don't have any bees right now, of course. They would not like being inside. But that means I can kind of show you what it looks like in here. So if I had my bees in this box and I was ready to put them in their hive in April, first thing I would do is I would take out this can that's in the top. And so this can is open, but in our package in April, this would actually be closed and it would just have sugar water in it. So that's feeding our honeybees. And if you can see right there, there's some little holes punched in the can. Honeybees' tongues are kind of like straws, so they can actually stick their straw tongues in those holes and drink the sugar water out of here. So that's their food while they're in the package. Then I have this very special cage. This is for our queen bee. So our queen, I'm guessing lots of you have learned about honeybees before. Most of the bees in a honeybee hive are girls, and actually in a package, all of the bees would be girls, but we've only got one queen. So we really want to make sure she's safe. So she would be in a cage like this to keep her safe. I would take this out, and I often just put this in my pocket or somewhere to kind of make sure I know where our queen is and keep her safe and warm. And then in this box, I would have about 10,000 bees. That's about how many bees would be in 3 pounds. And I would actually just turn this box over and I could literally just shake the bees into my hive. So that's how we get them from this box into our hive, is just turn them over and shake them like that.
So Ping, we already have a few questions. So this might be some math for a Monday morning. A couple people are wondering, Anne Marie and Brianna, how many bees per pound? So I think you just told us there was 10,000 bees, and that was in how many pounds?
That was in 3 pounds.
So if we take 10,000 and divide it by 3, that would give us how many bees per pound. But do you have an estimate number that you usually work with?
Yeah, so maybe we usually say about 3,500 or 3,500 bees per pound. If you want to do the exact math, if we say there's 10,000 in 3 pounds, then maybe like 3,333 bees per pound. But we don't normally need to get that exact.
Sure. Okay, awesome. Yeah. And Caitlin from Miss Molly's class is also wondering, why do you choose to work with bees?
Ooh, great question, Caitlin. I just really love bees. I know not everybody does. There's just a lot going on inside a honeybee hive. You can always learn something new. Just when you think you have things figured out, the bees will do something different, or the weather will do something different, and something new will be going on inside the hive. So I really like that. You get to learn with them, and they're just fun animals to work with.
Yeah. Awesome answer. So I think we left off, you were just telling us how you were shaking the bees into the hive and you had the queen safe in your pocket. So what's coming next?
Yeah, great. So then I'm going to move over to our demo honeybee hive over here. Again, we're inside. So this one doesn't have any bees in it, but that's great because we can take it apart to see what it looks like inside. And so if this was my hive that I had just put my package of bees into, I would take the queen out of my packet, and then I would actually usually spray her with a little bit of sugar water, and then just carefully peel this back, and I would let the queen walk into our hive here. But we'll open this up so you can kind of take a look and see what it looks like inside a honeybee hive. So we've got this cover on top. This is just kind of like the roof of your house. You can think of it as the roof of the honeybee's house. It helps keep the rain and the snow and the wind out. So I'm going to take that off. And then we have these boxes, and these boxes actually come apart so they can stack on top of each other, and they are hollow inside. So I'm going to hold it up just so you can see. You can still see me through the box. And that's great because if our honeybee hive is growing throughout the years, from spring through fall, if they need more space, I'm just going to take another one of these boxes and just stack it on top like this. So if you come see us at the bee center and you notice that some of our hives are like 3 boxes tall like this, and some of them are maybe just 1 box tall, it's just like how a bigger family needs a bigger house, right? So a bigger hive needs more space. So I just took a couple of these wooden things out of the hive when I was showing you how it was hollow. I want to take a closer look at these. We call these frames. So this is where the honeybees make their honeycombs. You can kind of see the wax here, and these are honeycombs that have had the honey taken out of them. So this is what it looks like. And we call them frames just because they're kind of like a wooden picture frame, right? But this is where the bees would make their honey, but it's also where the queen might lay some eggs. So I'll pull out a picture here so you can see kind of close up on one of our honeycombs. These little white things in there, those are honeybee eggs. So she lays them inside the honeycomb, and then those will hatch out into these larvae, which you can kind of think of as like a honeybee caterpillar. And those will grow up inside the cells there. So that is where the bees make their honey, but also where they would lay their eggs.
So Ping, we do have I'm going to interrupt for one moment. We do have a couple questions about the queen. So Ailey in Mrs. Olson's class is wondering what makes a bee a queen bee, and then Miss Bo's class is wondering how are the queens captured? So tell us more about the queens.
Yeah. Great questions. I know that. See, honeybees are fascinating, right? Let's go back to this picture where you can kind of see, so you can see the larvae, or like they almost look like little grubs, right? Inside the cells. But if you notice, it kind of looks like they're surrounded by this like white stuff inside the cells. So that's actually their food. That's honeybee food. And the other honeybees, the girl honeybees, make that food inside their heads. So then they stick their heads inside these cells in the honeycombs and put out that food. And if they decide that they need a new queen, like maybe the current queen isn't laying very well, she's not doing her job, they will actually replace her with a new queen, and they'll choose some really healthy either eggs or like young larvae like this, and they'll just start feeding them a special baby bee food called royal jelly. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that before. You can actually even buy, I have here a little bottle. It's got some royal jelly like pills in it that you can take, but it's just a really special, nutritious honeybee food, and it has everything in it that makes a queen a queen. So any girl honeybee egg can grow up to become a queen. It just depends on what they feed her. So if they keep feeding her royal jelly, that gives her what she needs to become a queen. And the queens grow bigger and they live longer. So that's pretty cool. Then as far as capturing the queen, let me see, I'm gonna grab, sorry, I'm just gonna step behind here really quick. I'm gonna grab something that'll kind of help us. This isn't, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this up there. So this is a queen honeybee right here. And then this is just a regular girl honeybee. You can see they're not that different in size. Our queen is just a little bit longer. And then this queen actually has a dot of paint on her back. So that's something that beekeepers will do to help us find the queen of the hive. But even without that, we just look, if we don't have that, we'll just look for a bee that looks a little bit longer and bigger, and then we'll actually pick her up. So you can actually pick them up by their wings or by their thorax. That's the middle part of the bee there. We'll actually just pick them up, and then I put my queen cage down. But, for example, this is my tool belt that I use when I'm beekeeping, and I actually have a cage here that's just for queens. So I would pick my queen up and open this up and put her in there. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is, hopefully this is a quick answer, but Lincoln from St. James, Mrs. Ekstrom's class wants to know, is there a king bee to go along with the queen?
Ooh, yeah, we get that question a lot. There's not a king bee. So on this dish again, you can see a boy right there. One of my favorite fun facts is this time of year in the middle of winter, there are 0 boys inside each honeybee hive. And then in the middle of summer, there's maybe like 2,000 boys inside each hive, but their only job is to mate with the queen from another colony. So that's like, to kind of be like a dad for bees in another colony. That's their only job. So there's maybe 2,000 of them in a hive in summer when that's important, but there's not like a king among those. It's just a lot of boys.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the next question. I think this will bring us back to the hive. Our friends who are joining us from Wyoming, New York want to know if you have to take all of the wax off of the frames before new bees go in their boxes.
Ooh, good. Yeah, that is a great question. And you're right, that does kind of bring us back. So you can see here, like I said, this is a honeycomb frame that's had the honey taken out of it. I don't think I have a good, oh, I do have a picture here. Okay, so you can see, this is a picture of what it might look like as the bees are making their honey. So you can see there's some honey in here, but then the bees will actually cover it up with a layer of wax like this when it's ready. So what we do is we'll cut this layer of wax off, and then I'll show you how we get the honey out of these frames like this. So this has had that top layer of wax cut off. And then I'm going to take a couple of these honeycomb frames and I'm going to come over to this machine here, which we call an extractor. And it pretty much just kind of flings the honey out of our honeycombs. So if you've ever watched like your laundry getting dried in the clothes dryer at home, you know, it kind of just spins the clothes around really fast and that helps fling the water out of the clothes. You can kind of think of this machine like that. So I'm just going to put these honeycomb frames in here and they're gonna spin around inside this machine. Oops, trying to put that in the wrong way. And then that is how we'll get the honey out. So we don't have to take all of the wax out. Like we still have the wax that's in those frames, but we do have to cut that wax off the top. And we have this really cool extractor here that actually is attached to a bike. This is a really special one that a woman in Minneapolis made. This isn't super common. Most of them you would turn with your hand, or they have like a motor that goes with them. But for this one, I just get to ride my bike inside. And then Jessica, it looks like it's gonna zoom in here and you'll be able to see how the frames kind of spin around inside there. And so it's a really simple machine, but then when I'm done, when all my honey is out, those frames, like I showed you, I can actually give them back to the honeybees and they can lay eggs or make more honey inside those frames. Oh, yeah, that's what happens. Oh.
So that is fascinating. We have a couple of questions about, I guess these are more number questions. People are interested in how much honey is produced each year, like in pounds, and how many bees total that you have.
Yeah, great questions. So each year, how much honey is made will kind of depend on maybe, you know, how the flowers are doing that year. So honey is just nectar from flowers. The bees go out, collect that and dry it out into honey. And so if it's a year that's really good for plants, like really good for flowers, that's also probably a really good year for honey. And we do sometimes help our bees too if it's a hard year, like we'll feed them sugar water so that they can make a little bit of extra honey. But a hive can make like 200 pounds of honey in a year. That'd be like a really good heavy year. And then we want to make sure that we're leaving at least 75 to 100 pounds of honey on a hive for the winter because that's their winter food. Then in the middle of summer, a hive could have over 50,000 honeybees in it. So that's 50,000. And then, so, you know, if we had like even just 2 hives outside, which usually have more than that, there'd be like 100,000 honeybees in the middle of summer. But this time of year, there's probably more like 20,000 honeybees inside each hive. So yeah, the amount of honey can differ, but it could be hundreds of pounds in a year.
We've also had several people ask, how long do bees usually live?
Ooh, great question. So we had those 3 main types of bees that we were looking at. So we talked about the queen. So, you know, there's only one queen in the hive. She's a girl, a female, and queens can live, you know, normally like a few years. In Minnesota, actually usually shorter because the winters are hard on our bees here. So like 2 to 4 years is normal in Minnesota. Then we have our workers, who are all the girls in the hive who aren't the queen. And in the middle of summer, they will probably only live a few weeks because they're working so hard that they only live a few weeks. But then some of the worker bees who are born in the fall, those are the bees who will live all the way through to the next spring. So those bees will probably live like 8 months. They're not working as hard, they're just kind of hanging out inside the hive. And then our drones, our boys, they will only live like a few months at the most. So they don't really do any work inside the hive. Sometimes they won't even feed themselves. The girls have to bring them food. But the trade-off with that is that the girls actually kick them out of the hive at the end of the fall. So that's why there are 0 boys inside the hive in the middle of winter. So they will die when that happens. So that's why boys would only live a few months at the most.
All right, Ping, we've had a few questions about winter, and I think we wanted to talk about winter. So is honey being made in the winter, or what are the bees doing in the winter?
Yeah, great question. So lots of you have probably heard the phrase busy as a bee, because honeybees really do just work nonstop pretty much from spring through fall, because that's the only time they can make honey. That's the only time that there are fresh flowers around, right? And then they'll store, like we said, we want them to have maybe like 80 pounds of honey inside their hive for the winter, because there aren't any fresh flowers out. So honey is their food for the winter. And they'll just make a big, let's actually walk over here. I have a picture, I think that'll help show that. They'll make a big ball of bees inside the hive. So we have a picture here that was taken with a camera where that actually shows heat. So you can see this is like where the heat is inside the hive in the winter. And in the middle of this ball of bees, it can be like 95 degrees, even on a cold February day like today. But then if we look right outside, we can actually see one of our hives. And you might notice this hive has like a black wrapper on it. So the hive is just kind of closed up for the winter. We let the bees hang out in there and eat their honey and cluster together. And that black wrapper just kind of helps keep it a little bit warmer. So if any of you have ever noticed, like if you're wearing a black shirt in the summer, it might be a lot hotter than a white shirt. So, dark colors like black help the sun keep us a little bit warmer.
Fantastic, Ping. So time is flying by here for us this morning, but there is also many questions about if you've ever been stung or how do you keep from being stung. So I know you have some equipment, like your beekeeping suit and your and smoke is sometimes a tool. So maybe take a few minutes and walk us through that process.
Yeah, I know, I definitely get those questions a lot. So we're gonna walk back over here. We can take a look at some of our equipment. I definitely do get stung sometimes. So for me, my body actually, it's kind of good for me personally, because my body kind of gets used to getting stung. And so it's kind of nice for me to get stung regularly. But I wear a hat like this. I have it all tied up at the bottom, so I won't try to put it on for you. I'm sure that'd be loud too in the mic, but it's just a hat like this, and you can see it's got netting that goes over my face to keep bees from getting in, because I don't really love getting stung in the face. I don't mind so much other parts of my body. Of course, another type of suit you can wear is a full body suit like this. So you can see, of course, you've got the netting over your face, and then this fabric is pretty thick, so a honeybee, even if a honeybee were to sting this, it wouldn't go through, but that means that the suit is also kind of hot. And so that's one reason I don't love these, but this is good and nice. It's sting proof. So that's what we have when we have like classes, we'll have people wear. And then I'm guessing lots of you have seen something like this before, maybe in a picture or a movie. This is called a smoker. So I'm gonna open it up, and you can see it's actually just empty inside right now, but I'll put like wood chips in here, and then light those on fire. And then when I'm puffing this, it's just literally smoke that's coming out. So just smoke from those wood chips. And I'll, kind of puff some of that on our bees. And it does a few different things to help make our bees easier to work with. The easiest way to explain it is it just kind of makes them a little calmer and less likely to sting. But in general too, if you're moving really like slowly and calmly, they're actually pretty, they're pretty okay with us. So
Awesome, thanks, Ping. So I know that we had some bee specimens where we might be able to look at the stinger. I think now would be a great time if you wanted to show us your tools of how we could do that.
yeah, absolutely. So let me find the best place to stand here so Jessica can get a look at our screen here. So I have a microscope that's attached to my computer here because bees are really small, right? So this helps us kind of look up close at different things. And I have a few different honeybees here. These honeybees just died naturally. Like we said, they only live a few weeks in the summer, but that means that we can look at them inside here. So I have my thumb right by this bee here. So you can just kind of see how big the bee is next to my thumb, right? And honeybees hold their stinger inside their body unless they're about to use it. They don't just fly around with their stingers out, but this honeybee does have her stinger out. So on our screen with our microscope here, I'm just gonna zoom in so you can see what that stinger looks like. All right, that looks pretty focused, right? Can you see that? Okay. All right, so remember this is a microscope on a screen, so this is really big, but you can see, right? That's pretty pointy there. And then I'll show you. So I have a stinger from a honeybee who stung me. So I'm just gonna hold that in front of the camera here so you can see how little that is, right? You can see the stinger by my thumb. It's not very big. But I'll zoom in on that with our microscope. And it is kind of covered up by a piece of plastic. Oh, so that's why you can see it's kind of shiny by our stinger. So lots of you, I'm guessing, I get this question a lot, have maybe heard that honeybees will die if they sting you. And that is true. So this is actually a good way to show you why that is. So you can see the stinger here, just like you saw kind of sticking outside of our honeybee earlier, but then you can see all of this stuff kind of attached to the stinger. And that is honeybee insides, kind of like honeybee guts. So what happens is a honeybee, when they sting you, there's little barbs in their stinger that get stuck in your skin. And then when the honeybee flies away, all of this stuff is still attached to it. So that all gets pulled out of her body. And I'm not showing you this to gross you out, but I just want to show you because honeybee is going to die if she stings you. So that means she's not like out to get you, right? They're not like looking for somebody to sting. They're only going to sting if they feel really scared for some reason, like they need to protect themselves or their hive, because this is what's going to happen to them, right? So if any of you are a little scared of bees, right, that totally makes sense. But one thing you can think about is that when you're outside, you can kind of think of it like being inside a grocery store for bees, right? So bees get all of their food from flowers. So if you're outside, in a garden or just walking around in a place where there are flowers, it's kind of like the grocery store for the bees. That's where they get all their food from. And if you have ever been in the grocery store and seen somebody you don't know, I'm guessing maybe you just ignore them or you maybe wave at them and just kind of keep going. And it's the same thing for bees, right? When we're outside, they're just like, oh, I'm getting my food, I'm getting my groceries. And if we leave them alone, we can actually sometimes just watch them do what they're doing and they really don't care what we're doing and they'll leave us alone as long as we leave them alone.
All right, good advice. Thanks, Ping. We have time for just a couple more questions. So this one comes from Max. He's curious if you have other bees besides honeybees at the Pollinator and Discovery Center.
Oh, great question, Max. So yeah, we actually have over 400 different species of bees in Minnesota, which is pretty cool. Most of them don't live in groups like the honeybees. So we keep them in different, like we don't keep them in a hive exactly like we keep our honeybees, but you might have seen at like a garden store or Home Depot or somewhere, they almost look like little bird boxes that have like stems or straws in them. Those are for some types of bees that live in those. They're almost kind of like little you can think of the stems as like apartments for the bees. And if we have a minute, I'll show you again with our microscope, one of my favorite bees. This one doesn't live, this one actually lives in the ground, but this is called a green sweat bee. Oop, and I'll focus a little bit more. And I just think these are so pretty. They're kind of like little jewels flying around our backyards. And this one was one that we just found in the garden at the bee center. And like I said, we're just in Chaska. So you, I'm guessing it's very likely that you have some of these flying around near where you live. So this is another type of bee that we would have here. But yeah, there are over 400 types of bees in Minnesota. So we have lots of different types of bees that live here. We just might not keep them in the same way that we would keep honeybees, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So returning to honey just for a second. So I have two more questions and they're both about favorites. So Ping, people want to know, what is your favorite kind of honey to eat or your favorite product from bees?
Oh, okay. That is a great question. We'll walk, that's perfect. We'll walk right back over to this table because some of you might have seen in the store before, maybe like different types of honeys like this that look kind of different. So the differences you'll see between these two types of honeys are just based on what types of flowers the bees were visiting when they made these. So this type of honey is mostly from dandelion flowers, and this type is mostly from a type of plant called buckwheat. So you can see it's a lot darker. Normally darker honeys are kind of stronger tasting. And I will say this is my favorite type, is the buckwheat, but it's a lot of other people's least favorite type of honey.
All right, everyone needs to go out and try some buckwheat honey because Ping says it's her favorite. So it's amazing how they're different colors based on what the bees ate. That's really cool. Okay, last question for you, Ping, today, and several people have asked this, but what is your favorite part about your job? So what do you like best about working with bees and at the Bee and Pollinator Discovery Center?
Yeah, I get to do a lot of cool things. So we talked a little bit about why I love working with honeybees. They're just, fascinating. There's lots of things going on inside a hive. They're really fun animals to work with, and you have to be calm around them because, like I was mentioning, if you act calm, they won't sting you. So it's kind of calming actually to work with them. And I get to work with kids and visitors and groups like all of you, and talk about bees and how amazing they are. And I get to share that world with them. So that's really fun for me.
Well, I think it is very obvious that you love your job because you have so much energy and lots of fun things to share with us. So thank you, Ping, for hosting us. And we hope that everyone who's joining us virtually today has a chance to visit Ping and the beehives and all of the cool exhibits in person at some point. So thank you, Ping, again. Thank you, classes, for joining us, for taking time this morning to really learn about what goes on at a pollinator center. So we are looking forward to a few more virtual field trips this year. We'll have one in March, which March starts tomorrow. So stay tuned for details about that, and one in April and May also. And teachers, this is an important message for you. Our Minnesota Agriculture in the Classroom program is hosting some professional development opportunities this summer where you get to travel to different agricultural sites. So we will be sharing details and registration for those later this week. And we always like to mention our Ag Mag magazines. We have a fall and spring issue for every grade level, K through 6. The spring issues are being sent in March. So if you haven't signed up, you still can. It's free, and we'll send you as many print issues as you would like. And they also, the content is available online. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us on this Monday, the last day of February. We hope you have a great week and enjoy the nice sunshine today.